on a comprehensive, as I said, 45 minutes to an hour video call with them in the next, once we get this called print, we can work on that as well. I said I'm doing welcome address. Yeah, I don't need to welcome anybody. You're all welcome. But what I want to really say is that this process that we are embarking on, all of you are embarking on. By the way, on the other day I was there for like an hour. It was absolutely fantastic. It was really, you know what I really liked about the format is that you could do a lot more with that kind of format, sort of reactions. You know, you spend some time, you know, the same exercise we could do for like 1 week, but it won't be as effective. So I don't know how the rest of the time went. I'm sure it was very useful. So, and I hope the revisions are being made from that, and we're expanding it, and we're following the broader deadline that we had put for ourselves. What I want to briefly mention is that from the very beginning, we need to emphasize for the students the need for wanting to learn a range of disciplines to be a more effective journalist. Broader interdisciplinary learning as a part of their effort to understand society, which is a very critical attribute of a journalist or a communication professional. That needs to be emphasized a lot. Part of the emphasis could be through courses, but somehow we need to think in terms of how do we bring them into real life experiences, how issues are brought to the forefront. In a way, pedagogically, we need to think in terms of maybe even infusing a lot more of media-related materials into the classroom. I think the constitution-making process could be a very interesting thing to look at. The Nuremberg trials would be an interesting thing to look at. Even the more contemporary issues that the world is facing. There are some absolutely amazing 60-minute videos of some, big issues. In a way, we can experiment certain things here. That's always a challenge in many programs, but in this we can. And I think as faculty members, we may all need to develop pedagogies that introduce them into the big challenges of society. So that's my main point. I have nothing more to add. I'm very, very excited about this process. As Tom said, this is one of the more interesting things we do as a faculty member, so I applaud you for your leadership. We have recorded the last exercise, and we are recording this as well, which is great for institutional memory. You can go back to it and see what were the conversations and that resulted in. It's a bit like our Constituent Assembly debates. So it's so have the debate. Thank you.
The 4 sections which goes through the day, and I'll ask Sukumar to actually take us through the first part, because
conceive of a course that over 3 years creates a kind of pathway towards journalism practice and also towards critical studies of contemporary world, contemporary India. So one of the courses we teach, which would be useful for both of these, would be this contemporary India, politics and democracy. That's what we call it. So the pedagogy would be to be constantly monitoring media content, the current media content, and to keep connecting these to the contemporary in the sense of they trigger questions which take you back to what are the possible determinant forces of particular current trends. And that is a kind of it could kind of provoke a process of inquiry, which could lead you to your own kind of study, your own inquiries and your own learnings. So, so the structure of each period, each class would be like 10 minutes of this, and then possibly referring back to. But of course, the spread of the instruction through the semester would have to be maintained without too much diversion. Now, you can't allow that preoccupation with current events to take you far adrift of the main course. So we'll have to kind of continually negotiate that, how that is done in a practical sense. So the contemporary India course we see as beginning with what is unique about India. What is it really that we should be aware of in terms of India's uniqueness in the global scenario? And it's of course the fairly commonplace observation that it's probably only surviving multilinguistic state with stable and durable democratic practices. And what do we mean by democratic practices? We mean the usual sense of rule by majority, but then that's to be distinguished from majoritarianism. That is, more and more becoming the reality of how democracy functions. And then, of course, it is not all contemporary. There are certain roots of what we see today as contemporary political dilemmas, ideological kind of struggles going on in the political realm. And these, I think, can be traced back to the early imagining of the Indian nation and the freedom struggle, the moderate versus radical, which everybody is kind of familiar with. And also the imagining of the nation in English print versus the vernacular imaginings. And this has some kind of connection to how we understand how the media developed, the regional media, the English media, the different kind of linguistic idioms that came into use, the kind of, the political kind of divergences between, say, Tilak and Phule had a counterpart in the way they used the language. So that becomes relevant to our understanding of how the media evolved during the freedom struggle. Then the Gandhi's synthesis, the reorganization of the Congress by linguistic province. And this again has an impact on how we see the growth of the media, the linguistic province. And the new dialogue on nationalism. Once you have that linguistic reorganization, you have a new dialogue on nationalism, which in a sense runs parallel to the English language discourse. Gandhi, Tagore, and Ambedkar, the divergent imaginations, which continue to resonate today. If you go out into the political arena, you find these themes continually coming up. Then, of course, the event-based, the fact-based narrative. Independence, partition, drafting of the Constitution, the objectives resolution, then the early challenges to constitutional principles. It's not on a smooth course. There have been setbacks, there have been judicial challenges to political executive actions, and there have been that constant process of tension, the creative tension in which practices, political and democratic practices have changed. So land reforms legislation, affirmative action, and free speech right, three key areas in which that early tension was manifest. Famous statement by Nehru that we gave ourselves a great constitution, but it's been purloined by the lawyers, which led to the First Amendment, which had an impact on all three of these: affirmative action, free speech, and land reforms. I'm sorry, there's a bit of repetition there. The reorganization of states and sustenance of the Congress system. We kind of tend to read that as a key decision, which caused its own tensions, because there was this fear that there will be a kind of balkanization because of reorganization of states. But in a sense, it's contributed to greater stability. So, how do you read that kind of dynamic? Then the erosion of Congress dominance is 1967, key electoral kind of milestone. And the new division, the 1980s, of course 1970s, we were looking at the political crisis which led to the emergency and the democratic kind of restoration of 1977. And the 1980s and the emergence of new political forces, the Mandal and Mandir moments in the 1990s, understanding caste, because caste becomes increasingly the single most important determinant of electoral behavior. New divergences and consolidations in the millennium, the splintering of the single party dominance, the coalitions becoming the rule rather than, which were once kind of disdained by the Congress having to necessarily accept it as a matter of practical necessity. And understanding political violence and insurgency, this came up from our discussion on Friday from a group of journalists, that it's not, we had an intention of covering this within the broader sweep of events, but there was a sense that this should be a specific focus, because increasingly journalists will be challenged to report on these in a sensitive manner. And today we see that gap in professional competence. We see a very serious gap in reporting conflict with an informed perspective. And that's why you see this wave of ultra jingoism in the press. And I'm sure I'm not unique in making that observation. Everybody sees that all around. So, and then India's foreign policy, the neighborhood and beyond, because we see the neighborhood is the region through which India's larger engagement with the world is refracted. And then the detailed study of 3 general elections, only because they're most recent and they're all interesting in their own ways, 2004, 2009, and 2014. And that is kind of looking at the real kind of, what does a journalist really have to consider when covering an election? How do parties gear up? What are their campaign strategies? What is vote share? What are the regional trends? What are the sub-regional trends? Like, a state like UP could have different patterns manifest in different parts. The Western UP versus Uttaranchal and so on, versus Purvanchal, sorry, and so on. Making sense of it all. How do you understand vote swings? Incumbency factors, anti-incumbency factors, and so on. And then we have additional themes, which are, from the media point of view, cricket is becoming, cricket is very much an alternate religion in this country, and you don't understand media dynamics without understanding cricket. That is becoming increasingly the reality today. So that could be a theme talked over. Maybe I'm told the cricket nationalism course taught in one of the schools, and it's an entire course, but we can't afford to put in that kind of time. Maybe it will be a talk over a week or so. And then, of course, the magic of Bollywood and the power of regional film. Again, the power of regional film, more of the southern phenomenon in terms of regional consolidation and assertion, and the magic of Bollywood more as a pan-Indian kind of force of solidarity, you could call it. Now, our friends from the media the other day suggested that these also be introduced, but this we could also introduce in a second year course on the history of Indian media. So maybe there will be mention of these, which will prepare the ground for the further inquiries in the second year. The changing Indian media scenario, crucial legislation, policy decision, the Working Journalists Act, which is an important kind of regulatory. And unlike most other nations, India introduces this law on the understanding that it's very important for freedom of the press that you should have secure working conditions for journalists. So, it's a very different conception of press freedom. In the US or UK, for instance, it would be considered as an intervention in the autonomy of the press, but here they have a very different kind of conception. And so you have the expansion of broadcasting, cable TV, and online media and challenges to regulatory structures. So those would be, once we're getting into the detailing of the course, we'll figure out how best to present these. Otherwise, they will be more retained for the secondary course on history of India. So that's the basic outline of the course. And we started with a very small reading list, but then we had many more suggestions coming up. And Vice Chancellor also suggested that this is too heavy duty, and I agree. No students are going to read even one of these books in a semester. But we'll have to be more specific. We'll have to assign particular chapters, particular pages. But I thought this is kind of important in terms of covering the ground that we have in mind. Rajni Kothari, Politics in India, which is one of the early works on understanding Indian democracy, and has certain insights which are still relevant. Jahan Jha, Ayodhya, the Dark Night, which was about that inclusion of the idols into Ayodhya, which had great consequential implications for the Indian politics after that. Ramchandra Guha, India after Gandhi, is of course a huge compendium where you'll find just about everything you want. The facts are all there, the narration is there. You can do your own interpretation of the narrative. You can come up with the alternate narrative, but you'll find all the facts that you need there. Zoya Hassan, India after Gandhi, Congress after Indira, and other books give you an idea of how the party system functions. And there are certain insights into party formation and so on, and competition. Paul Brass, Peter Wilkinson, Ashutosh Varshney are important works towards understanding political violence. Kanchan Chandra is about the kind of transformation of the parties into.
Satish Deshpande, The Problem of Caste, is a collection of readings which explore various aspects of caste. And then, of course, there are EPW will continue to be a major source. We'll continue mining EPW through these next 3 years. But we'll have to work on that and continually extract the relevant readings for each subject as it is taught. So that is the basic outline of the contemporary India. The learning outcomes, of course, would be fact-based course. It's very important that we are not dealing with high theory or conceptual understanding, but the fact-based course. But there will be some conceptual component in terms of the early debates on nationalism and so on. The course will enable a student to gain a firm mooring within the contemporary political milieu and quickly respond to events as they occur. That's being very much part of the professional craft of the journalist. Quick responses and well-informed responses. You can't just be shooting your mouth off. Place them in broader historical context and achieve comparative perspectives, as well as understand the unique character of each event. So that's the first course, and all comments and suggestions are welcome. Thank you.
I think it's important to get an understanding of the concepts of nation and state, because a lot of things become clearer if you have a grasp of that. You see, in a sense, stateless itself is a sort of a variable thing, and you have it's only after Keshavananda Bharati and the basic structure doctrine, which was influenced by the writings of a German jurist, that there is a sense of stateless in India. Otherwise, you see, we inherit a legal structure, the common law, from Britain, which is not really a state. I mean, it's a compact of the lords, the monarch, and the commons. And the legal system itself is kind of independent in a way. You have judges who are laymen writing about dispensing justice on circuits and so on. Unlike continental Europe, where the judiciary is very much part of the state. And now, after Keshavananda, our judiciary behaves very much like it is the state. It has taken control of the programmatic features of our constitution and wants to give directives on implementing the constitutional program but that comes after 73. You see that you highlighted land reforms and the First Amendment, but a central discussion ought to be on the Keshwananda Bharati case, because it in a way changes the nature of our constitution. And to that extent, you have to include Upendra Bakshi's Law and Politics, the politics of the judiciary in your reading, and you've got to get an understanding of what it is that the Keshwananda Bharati case actually did in terms of India's jurisprudence, its understanding of stateness. Because stateness in the USA and in Europe, in Britain, is very vague, which is why you have, all kinds of possibilities and openness in the US system, and it's so to get an understanding of what is it that's happened in India. The basic structure doctrine is central, and I think all journalists have to understand what that is and its implications.
Right.
Those are my first thoughts.
Thank you. Very valid points. But this book of Bakshi's is the title is.
Yes.
My question. Okay.
Too big.
It looks like minimum 2 courses. Anyway, please. Sorry.
So my big comment will be, it is covering a lot of issues, and I actually doubt whether you would be able to make use of any one topic at hand in a better way, because if you reduce the amount of things that you are talking to half or maybe less than half, then possibly you can have a meaningful continual discussion. This seems actually too much.
Yeah.
What about the courses at other universities? Because I think journalism is something to be practiced, much more practice rather than study.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like accounting.
Again,
Ask
it's
by
not necessarily
Dr.
true, not completely true actually.
And-
There are a lot in journalism programs where there is a very clear social science component, very clear humanities component. You have to understand
The
large social science and humanities.
uniqueness of this journalism course is that it has a strong social science and humanities component.
And you ought to.
But
Totally.
But the worry about it being too large a canvas, I think we all share that worry. In fact, all the courses have that problem at this time. Then once we start doing the week by week detailing, which also going to be a difficult template to follow, because it's only when you go there, when as the American says, the rubber hits the road, that's when you really realize whether it's feasible to cover all that in 1 hour. So yeah, we are alive for that. We will be talking about it very much more in the future, and that detailing will be done. At this time, we've only got the broad outline, but that week by week detailing
I think my
will be
suggestion
done
would
over the
be
next
how
month.
we take the introductory courses covered in the first semester, but later on you can just go into details and really detailed outline course on the same issues. So that might be, I don't know.
Some of this could go into the second semester course on Indian political system and constitution, which we'll come to in a little while. We will make those boundary adjustments, but the detailing remains to be done. That will be done over the next month, and we'll then decide. We'll have to make a judgment on how much we can burden, because the Vice Chancellor has already cautioned us that the reading list we have drawn up is too heavy. It's impossible for any student to deal with that large burden in a single semester course. So
You really believe it?
no, you don't think so?
I think it's too short. No. Let's take your themes. Now, I was just trying to analyze how you think. Forget that. Yours is a theory between the nature of contemporary events and the structure of an overall narrative. Right? The structure of the overall narrative is what gives you the social science. The contemporary events is what gives you a theory of journalism. And you're trying to sort of put the two together in an interesting way. But actually when you do it, it's your silences which are stunning.
Okay.
I mean, let's just take your own theory. It took me some time to analyze it. It's the relation between imagining and the imaginary, as you yourself said, Pasteur described. if you're talking this, then it has to have a theory of civilization before you have a theory of the nation state. Because if you don't have a civilizational idea of the thing, then all you're going to produce is a kind of modern history of a certain kind. So a lot of the rethinking that is going into this thing will be lost. Two, the discourses on nationalism, unfortunately, are kind of straight JNU Delhi University style, which is not the most literate theories of nationalism. I mean, so what you have to do, you get your standard sacred theology, the triumvirate of Gandhi, Nehru, or Gandhi, Tagore, and Ambedkar. Nationalism wasn't like that. This is the kind of tutorial college summary what happened. And I think the journalist has to challenge that.
You know, if I may just explain, our friends the other day suggested how can you teach nationalism without mention of the right-wing construct.
Absolutely.
So I say we teach positive things. The negative things you can read in the silences. So
No.
that is what I
No.
my response.
So what I want to say, put the national thing as a debate. Tagore, Gandhi, Kumaraswamy, Savarkar. It puts Savarkar in his place. Otherwise he stays behind like a residual monster. And I think that itself shows a certain kind of bias.
Yeah, well, you know,
No, that's
in
your
a sense,
choice.
the Gandhi Tagore.
There's nothing absolutely right with this.
Yeah.
Your choice is as strategic as mine.
It's
But
not,
I'm trying to say, if you are sort of a new kind of course, then it has to bring in a new heuristics.
yeah.
I think rather
Second, I was just thinking of books. You know, they are the EPW anthologies, the seminar anthologies. Many of these have a lot of very interesting
Was
articles.
seminar also produced? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. EPW, of course, is.
Yeah, and some of them are very good.
Yeah,
You might be interested in using some of them.
that's right.
But it gives the student a range of things to fish around.
I just listed the one on caste, which came out, I think, 2 years back. Satish Deshpande. But yeah, there are several others.
Yeah, if I can say something. I also think actually taking glancing through what you just presented, not only 2 courses, I think there are 3 or 4 courses. And if we have to do real justice to many of the other ideas which underpin nation state, as you were saying, civilization, etc., it's true. I mean, I partially agree with you because there are certain ideas which have had a longer history, which have had, you need to get into fairly complicated areas. But if that has to happen, I think you need more courses. And this is just one idea. I think it's been very useful for me, as having taught here for a while, to find, say, at the undergraduate level, a way of introducing a theme in the first few sections, first few classes, which becomes a sort of what we call a golden thread right through the course. Meaning, it's say if you choose, it depends again upon your choosing. It's an idea like the nation, an idea like the state, the conversation between the 2 of them, the conflict between the 2 of them, whatever. But I find that at the undergraduate level, it tends to communicate better right through the length of a course. If we can use 1 or 2 ideas which hook or anchor, again, fairly straightforward or simplistic seeming ideas, but those can be explored, those can be dealt with. You keep coming back to that theme. It's almost like in classical music, a certain note which you keep coming back to. I think that's a very effective way of communicating with
So you think the nation could be a.
depends on your choosing.
Right.
Nation, state, whatever, caste, depends on.
That's a good strategy also, because every day there's a discussion on
And of course, it's also very complicated.
nationalism and anti-nationalism. So that's very much part of the media today. So may have a good.
Just
Yeah.
a quick one. You mentioned about capturing elections and understanding how the seed and vote share swings have taken place around, particularly in polling and voting. Are you going to use psychology, methods in psychology in this? And this is generally a question that I would have for the school. Whether there is a course that engages with only numbers and data analysis in elections, because this is something that Arun and I have been doing, and this rather dearth of this type of analysis in elections. election studies in India. So of course, if it has not been captured here, because the motive over here would be different, I think it must be captured sometime. Because journalism and data are moving so close together.
Data journalism.
I mean, if not us, someone will do it anyway.
What's your
And you can't.
Thanks.
And also, in the list of the books that you mentioned, I think Atul Kohli's work can also fit in somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Based on, and there are others which have come to my mind. I think very recently, Janki Nair and others, they edited the nationalism lectures that took place in JNU after the.
That's illiterate.
That's what?
Illiterate.
That's illiterate.
Yeah, because you give a one-sided picture, you have to provide a balance.
No, but
But you have Makarand Paranjpe and you have
some of the.
Gopal Guru and
No,
you
but
have,
the problem is you get one or two, but across the
No, you're right.
residual character.
You're right. No, but in even that one-sided picture, it's a good, concise submission of a particular type of argument.
No, then we should be clear about our choice of idea.
Don't call it nationalism, call it national.
No, because then be clear about the choice of ideology.
I think
And in the, so just to finish, now that we're talking about James nationalism, in the idea of freedom of expression that we talk about constitutional debates, some of the most fascinating debates took place as to why Section 124A will not be a reasonable restriction in Section 19(1), and why sedition has to be taken away from freedom of speech. And that is often forgotten, but probably one of the pivotal structures through which freedom of expression in India was happening.
so we are at this time kind of facing that dilemma whether to deal with that separately here or to take it up
entirely in the course on media law and policy, which will be taught in the second year. Second year, no? So, Ruchi, media law and policy, yeah. Or second semester. Second semester, yeah. So, we'll figure that out once the detailing is done. It is a very important part of the instruction. And also the whole, the history of Supreme Court rulings on freedom of speech issues, which Gautam Bhatia deals with in a recent book, Offend, Shock, and Disturb, Oxford. It came out 2 years back, 2015. So, yeah, that's very important, and particularly because the journalism course, it's very important to teach that.
I think Jani had something to say.
Oh, okay.
People waiting. Jani, please go.
It really follows from what Rahul and Arun pointed out. I think we also have to keep in mind that these are just 17, 18-year-olds that we are going to teach in the first semester. And in our experience of liberal arts, seeing that, we really have to start at a very basic level. Because they may or may not have done just even rudimentary political science, sociology, economics at the school level. So just throwing them into deep water may work, but it may backfire as well.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, since you've put in so much in the syllabus, and I agree, I think it probably needs a bit of rethinking as to what you want to include. And one way might be to think of the course outline in terms of themes. So if it is about contemporary India, think in categories of politics, economy, culture, because putting cricket, Bollywood, as well as analyzing elections, but also understanding nations. So it's a lot of diverse themes. So actually structuring the syllabus into clearly defined themes also helps the student to understand what the course is about. So that's my suggestion.
We have a course which deals with culture separately, and economy does a separate course.
Okay.
So that's the intent.
To have distinct competences developing in understanding economics and in terms of understanding politics. Yeah, well, if you're constructing something in terms of a theme of nationalism, it's kind of useful to bring in cricket. And it also, it's useful in the sense that, cricket is something everybody's exposed to, and they look at it as a game, but nobody reads it as a signifier of something larger than that. So in a sense, it gets people thinking in slightly unconventional ways. I mean, for us it may seem like commonplace, but for a fresh school graduate it might be something new. So, but I agree, we need to really work on the structure, the fine-tuning of this. So that's being done over the next month, and hopefully if you're able to comment on that at that point, then we can probably get a more realistic kind of structure of the course, yeah, so.
Yeah. Actually, just to add on to Johnny's point, I think it echoes, but what at least it happens is that when there are a lot of readings to be covered, invariably the students are not able to cope. You tend to hold their hand and teach them very rudimentary aspects of it. And the biggest danger that at least I've seen personally when I do that is that I tend to impose my own viewpoint on the student as opposed to allowing the student to think independently. So I think it's a balance that needs to be struck. I personally myself wouldn't have been able to cover all of this in one semester and expect the student to read everything. So I think we need to probably figure out that.
I like your suggestion in terms of the thematic thing, and I think one thing that could probably help us is because there's 15 weeks, so if there's like these modules that is probably clear to students, 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks could be like a realistic way to cover one specific thing. There's just different ways to structure it, and I think Sukumar knows best how to do it. But I'm just sort of responding quickly to some of the suggestions that you're bringing.
Also, if I can add a little more to that, taking off from what it might just happen. If you look at Rajni Kothari, you might actually get a way of looking at, say, introducing politics in India in terms of, say, the Congress system, in terms of some other system, etc., etc. These can be useful. You might get frameworks from those particular readings which might be amenable to your course. So that's one. And the other thing which I want to say is that since also this is a journalism course, and since in particular this course or these courses that you've spoken of, there are clear readings which come from the history of Indian journalism. There might be some long, say for example, if there's a debate on inequality, I think 2 years back, Pratap wrote a very long essay for the caravan. It brings in, I think, the journalistic edge also, or the essay writing, not the slightly non-academic way of communicating things, but at the same time, pieces which have almost that kind of a character.
Yeah, EPW, that way we consider to be a very important resource, because also it reflects the kind of temper of the debates that happened in, say, mid-60s, the crisis of the mid-60s. How do you deal with that in the economics course? And also, I'm sure 67 to 70 to 74, the emergency, the Naxalite insurgency, and so on. There's very important commentary, and that reflects how contemporaries viewed it, and some of the best, most sharp contemporary commentary on the matters appeared in EPW those days. It was a very unique magazine, journal
So
too.
there's clearly, I think, a case for journalistic readings also.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's very important. Yes, indeed. Yes. So yes, that reading list is again a area of worry. So we'll have to get shorter kind of.
So Kumar, you want to move to the next one?
Yeah.
Give you all just a broad, this whole thing has been broken up. It's just for the first year. So the first 2 semesters. It's not for the entire 3 years. The other 3 elements that Sukumar is going to tell us, talk about is India's economy, development and change, then contemporary world orders, new and old, then Indian political system and constitution. So that, we've kind of seen as a one thematic session of humanities and social science. And then we have the next, what we have clubbed together is media and society, theory and practice. So that would include media and social theory, impact of media and society, journalism, theory and practice, and creative arts and communication. And the rest of it, of course, is effective communication, news reporting, editing, literature and film comparative perspectives. But the first 2 sessions are more theory intensive. So the next element is India's economy, development and change. And Sukumar, I think you have 3 more. So if you can do 5 minutes each for 3, and then we can have the rest of the time discussing.
So that's this is also first semester for the economy, development, change, and we have roughly the same learning outcomes, which are that, ongoing events are quickly grasped and understood in terms of their context. And so we start with the contemporary debates over India's economic performance, because that's very much in the news. You pick up any of the economic newspapers and you see GDP growth. What does it mean? There's a political partisanship over it. There are lots of dispute over it. How good has it been since liberalization became official policy in 1991, in particular after the economy seemed to hit a new growth trajectory in 2004-05? That's shining India. Shining India begins in 2004-05. And, and the statistics also are very clear that there is a new growth momentum in terms of the GDP figures. But then, how good a parameter is GDP? And reference point here could be, it's very interesting that just recently there was this big public debate between two economists, Jagdish Bhagwati and Amartya Sen, over what growth means. Bhagwati wrote this book called Why Growth Matters, and Amartya Sen's book was titled India in Uncertain Glory. Despite growth, there's much that remains to be done, much that remains neglected. Fundamentals of national income accounting, because you need to have some grasp of that. And there's this famous analogy by John Hicks that you get the anatomy from national income account. You don't get the physiology. You don't see how the system works. You just see after the system has reached a particular point, you just get to see the system as it stands there, but you don't see the trajectories that it could possibly take. The creation of the Indian statistical system, Mahalanobis and the Indian Statistical Institute, reading government budgets and understanding fiscal policy, very important part of the practical skill set of a journalist, because most people tend to look at it as just a mass of numbers which can't be possibly negotiated. So then you have early Indian debates on the best strategies for developing a poor economy, Nehruvian approach and its crisis, because it's a quarter century since liberalization began, and nobody of that generation that's going to come in would know that there was something before that. There was something called the Nehruvian strategy, import substitution, the subsequent dynamic between liberalization or a global integrationist model and a self-sufficiency oriented strategy. Key events of the 1970s, foreign payments crisis and the new equilibrium, changing dynamics between agriculture and other sectors, farmer unrest through the 1980s, and the new paradigms of economic policy in the 1980s and the transformation of the paradigm in 1991. The quarter century of liberalization, economic inequality and its implications. And that, Rahul's gone, but he mentioned that essay by Pratap Bhanu Mehta, which of course is key to understanding that. Structural transformations, the emergence of the knowledge-based economy and the lag in manufacturing competence. Like for instance, today the Make in India is the slogan of economic policy. It's like, the overriding imperative. The Prime Minister speaks of it from every available platform. Why does he make that point? Because there's been an erosion of manufacturing competence. The emergence of new entrepreneurial classes, services growth and the worry of jobless growth. The stock market boom, 1980s onwards. How do you read the stock market boom? What does it really indicate? Is it really a measure of economic good health? Because there's so much hype over it that it's very important to get a proper perspective. India and China, comparative perspectives in economic development. This was suggested by a Vice Chancellor because he said that it sometimes helps to get these comparative perspectives. The market and the state, and new international economic bonds like BRICS, ASEAN, G20, India's new kinds of engagements with global economic blocs. Here again, the challenge is to get non-technical readings that a fresh school graduate can comprehend. And we have, I think, genres in Amartya Sen is fairly easy to comprehend, but we'll have to shorten that. We can't take the whole book. You'll have to identify specific chapters. Jagdish Bhagwati, Arvind Panagaria, the opposite point of view. Economic surveys from the Government of India for relevant years. And Amit Bhadri, Deepak Nair, A Layperson's Guide to Liberalization, written by two expert economists, of course, but with intent to reach the layperson. So we expect that student also, undergraduate student will also be able to grasp it. So that's it, yeah. Learning outcomes are roughly the same. It's intended learning outcomes. And their way through claims about the significance of growth figures and assess their substantive effects in terms of welfare. The course would equip participants to track key economic indicators and respond with accurate readings of what they reveal about the state of the economy. So yeah, that's, again, it's, the intent is to have a fact-based pedagogy rather than conceptual, you know. Except for the brief thing about national income accounting, which I assume people will understand. Arun would be able to clarify that better. I assume that people can understand the concept of value addition and how sampling is done. One gap, which of course Yugang mentioned, is that we had an intent of introducing a statistics course in the first year, but there's also there's a gap in our competence, and there's also a worry that the fresh school graduates who come in here may have a certain aversion to mathematics and numbers. So we might do it in the third year. So so it's, you know, we will welcome your comments on that, but that basically is it, yeah. Thanks.
In terms of readings, I just wanted to add that something which students can really cling up to is a book called Roma Kafka. It's getting updated. And at Delhi University, you know, everybody knows this kind of
Which one?
Roma Kafka is kind of everybody knows Indian economy. And Nagraj keeps writing a lot about Indian economy. So I set up lectures
On Nagraj.
on Nagraj, yeah. So that can be quite useful, and because this is course on development, Devraj Ray's introductory book is an essential.
Big fat book.
Big fat. Yeah, it's going to be updated soon. I think for right up to 2 years ago. So
Okay, but you can identify specific chapters there, which would
yeah,
be yeah.
especially. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll talk to you about that. Thanks.
Nice. Yugang?
Okay. I would, 3 short points. One, I would say please get rid of NIA, National Income Accounting. It's
Get rid of it.
redundant, archaic, and boring. But you need some
all apart from the specifics of these just go
with
war was that. And you know, which is public. Education itself is actually Indian fundamental. And well, connect globalization.
School graduates. Muddling through the contingent on local and as illustration pilot between 19 and 2000 illustration has of outside support anywhere. Outside support, you don't. You know, already without. So, and then some of the temporary defining because and in the Constitution, equality clause, law. That you are making a first equality. Up on and putting the fundamental combination, intentional arising and inherited and then basic in relation to land writ large. The doctrine, what is it is a doctrine. Recently, this while principle of struck down, you know, basic structure. To get my head around that, it's paradox. But I think issues can the changes rubric of the integrity of the aided to on ground secularism and federalism, and such as 1990, the autonomy, and the 2014 on commission perspective. The single party, the was conferred by the national response with this, the question of proliferation, comparatives in terms of the that portion of representation systems in use in certain legislation, the current right to information, right to food, right food is not right to employment was struck with personal touchability assertion article, informed comment on that. Special category states, the Hill state, accord, or in terms of Indian state negotiation insurgency. That on negotiations for creating creating act of it, and then of course just punishment is moral and legal, and has a very vibrant tradition that issue, although nothing. I mean, we continue to have, or at least we do when we do it. It's important to deal with that also. Here, been able to identify two works by Granville Austin. Indian Constitution. Book is. Oh, okay, sorry. The Kostla's recent book, oh, sorry, is a very brief, dealing with of the three. The digest. Although I'm not taking anything. Yeah. Yes. Anuj missed a seminar, but a book is interesting. Last week, right? A book on ILCS.
Local governance in this country very important. I mean, it's likely to start. They need to understand exactly to what the big nation of getting some women brought life elections. I mean, that's central. It's one of the most now to itself right one of the most amendments of the Constitution.
Then the core study system and constitution, we see more of a 90% constitution, very less politics.
We taught that first semester.
See, either you write it as political Indian constitution makes it right, but having
Do the law first course in the contemporary India course. So you have to bring in the missing poems here.
readings.
Actually, it's an absence of conference. So, it's not to be discussed.
There, but for the implementation.
It just follows. There's no economic politics as formats. Acharya has some work on Bengal,
Right.
focusing on politics as a format. And I think within the Indian political system, that's an important to look at. Yes. I think it's some area like Acharya.
What's his name?
So if I remember the
With no background, this is going to be an exciting and offer process all of this.
It's like a journalist.
Austin doesn't have legal training. Okay, that's encouraging. Someone could be tapped. He's written extensively over the years. And he's a lawyer, yeah. Article 370 and so on, he is.
Perhaps the emphasis can be, and maybe the can pitch in more emphasis cases with the students. Part of the case very much decision. So in terms of pedagogy, that could be a.
In terms of, say, for instance, capital punishment, it can be talked through significant cases. So, the same case, and then Krishna is Nirbhaya case. Yeah.
And people
that came out
There was
last.
this law report, Justice A.K. Shah was chairman of law. He came out with a report on capital punishment. Yeah, and
Okay,
yeah,
so Kumar,
I don't know where that's going.
we have to end the.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
You and
Yeah.
you made I kind of hold you to them and more out of you in terms of the inputs. Having more, we're having